Hello, dear friends, and welcome back to Aunt Cora's Porch Stories. I am your sister Cora, and today I have a story that touches on the very foundation of what we hold dear, the bonds of family and the sacred promise of a mother's love. It's a story that asks a painful question. What do you do when the person who should be your closest ally becomes your darkest betrayer? This tale is about a woman named Eleanor who always believed her mother, Martha, loved her the most, until the day the will was read. It was a cold, gray afternoon when we all gathered in the lawyer's office, the air thick with unspoken grief and a quiet, uncomfortable anticipation. Martha, Eleanor's mother, had been gone for 2 months, but her presence still lingered, a phantom of warmth in the sterile room. There was Eleanor sitting straight and fragile, and across from her, her younger sister, Clara. Clara, with her expensive coat and that look of feigned innocence she always wore. Eleanor had always been the rock, the dependable daughter, while Clara was the beautiful, chaotic one, the one who always seemed to need rescuing. Eleanor had always been there to bail her out, from debts, from bad jobs, from bad marriages. Unconditional love, she called it. A mother's duty, she thought. The lawyer, a stern man named Mr. Thompson, cleared his throat and began to read. Eleanor barely listened to the legalese. She knew what the will said. Martha's estate, the old family house, and the small savings account were to be divided equally between her two daughters. That's what her mother had promised for years. That's what seemed right. But the words that followed hit her like a physical blow. And to my beloved daughter Clara, I bequeath the entire estate, including the house at 42 Linden Street and all financial assets. The line that followed, the insult wrapped in flowery language, was what truly wounded her. I know Eleanor will understand, as she is well established and has always been self-reliant. Eleanor felt the world tilt. She wasn't established. She and her husband had struggled to pay their own mortgage. She had supported Clara through endless years of unemployment. Clara, the irresponsible one, the one who had always taken. Now Clara sat there, a smirk barely concealed behind a handkerchief, suddenly the owner of everything. Eleanor was numb. It wasn't about the money, it was about the cold, final message from her mother. I value her more than you. All the years of devotion, all the late-night calls, all the silent sacrifices, invalidated in one cruel paragraph. She felt a burning, agonizing sense of betrayal. The lawyer closed the folder, and Clara, standing up too quickly, stumbled a little. Eleanor watched as Clara quickly smoothed the wrinkles in her coat and adjusted the expensive designer handbag, suddenly the picture of triumphant greed. As Eleanor gathered her purse, her heart heavy with despair and a terrifying sense of being utterly alone, the lawyer leaned in. He avoided Clara's gaze and quickly, slipped a tiny folded piece of paper into Eleanor's hand. The paper was clearly not legal in nature. It was an ordinary receipt, folded precisely in half. Mr. Thompson whispered, "Read this later, Eleanor. Your sister did this to you. Your mother was tricked." Eleanor stumbled out onto the street. The betrayal from her mother was overwhelming, but the lawyer's whisper, "Your sister did this to you," was a chilling, shocking twist. She stood alone on the curb, the world blurring, clutching the tiny paper, the final piece of the devastating family drama now placed directly in her trembling hands. What did that mean? What did Clara do? And what was written on the paper that the lawyer gave her? The betrayal felt deep, turning the love she had felt into resentment and an overwhelming desire for justice. Dear friends, the story of Eleanor and the shocking secret in the will is just beginning. Her journey from betrayal to justice will be a long and emotional one. What do you think was on that note? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Eleanor hurried home, her chest tight with a mix of despair and a chilling, nascent hope. She locked the front door of her small house, a home she and her husband, Robert, had worked 2 decades to afford, and sank onto the old floral sofa. The will had spoken of her being well-established, an ugly lie that now felt like a final, deliberate insult from her late mother, Martha. She wanted to believe her mother had made a mistake, that the words weren't truly meant to diminish her, but the evidence was overwhelming. She finally unfolded the small, crisp piece of paper the lawyer, Mr. Thompson, had slipped her. It wasn't a receipt, but a copy of a bank statement, and scribbled across the bottom in a hasty, almost panicked hand were 3 words: "See the withdrawals." Eleanor's hands trembled as she read the dates. The statement belonged to Martha, her mother. Over the last 3 years, there were a series of massive, irregular cash withdrawals, tens of thousands of dollars missing, not for medical bills, but labeled only as miscellaneous. And the dates? They coincided exactly with the times Clara, her sister, was struggling and needed help to start a new business venture or recover from a bad investment. Each time, Eleanor had lent Clara her own hard-earned money, while Clara was secretly draining their mother's life savings. But the final line on the statement, dated just 3 weeks before Martha's passing, was the most gut-wrenching of all. It was a single entry: final gift to Clara, $50,000. This was money Clara had taken, likely convincing their frail, confused mother that she needed it for urgent, necessary expenses. Eleanor realized the horrific truth. Clara hadn't just been dividing the inheritance, she had been stealing it, long before the will was written. This put a new, darker meaning on the phrase, "in the will." Eleanor is well established. Clara must have manipulated their mother, painting Eleanor as the rich, non-needy sister, while claiming she, Clara, was the impoverished victim who needed everything. The ultimate family betrayal story was unfolding right in Eleanor's hands. For the daughter-in-law's revenge, a cold-hearted plot. The rage that boiled up in Eleanor wasn't just about the money, it was about the unconditional love and trust that Clara had systematically exploited. Clara hadn't just taken Martha's money, she had stolen Martha's love and used it as a weapon against her own sister. Eleanor, the sensible psychologist who always dealt in logic and empathy, now felt a cold, calculated need for just-a-served family story. She knew confronting Clara directly would only lead to denials and theatrics. Clara was a master manipulator, always turning herself into the victim. Eleanor decided to apply her professional skills in a highly personal way. As a former child psychologist, she was an expert in reading people, in uncovering hidden motives, and in applying pressure points. Clara's biggest weakness? Her own husband, Michael, the successful but rigid and deeply traditional man Clara had married a year ago. Michael was wealthy, respected, and highly protective of his reputation and his family's finances. He represented Clara's new, coveted stability. Eleanor's plan was simple and viciously effective. She would expose Clara's dark past to Michael, not out of spite, but to ensure Clara could never use anyone else, especially her own mother, as a means to her greedy ends again. This was the silent, cold-hearted mother-in-law revenge the good daughter was planning. The first step was to discreetly gather all the evidence of Clara's dark past story. Eleanor remembered every single time she had bailed Clara out: the loan for the disastrous boutique, the funds for a failed online course, the money to cover a gambling debt her ex-husband had left her. She compiled bank records, old emails, and texts, a complete, undeniable chronicle of Clara's financial irresponsibility and deceit. She was building a case for revenge mother-in-law style, using the truth as her only weapon. She had to move fast. Clara was already making plans to sell the family home, the house Martha had promised they would share forever. Eleanor knew the only person who could stop Clara now was the person Clara was trying hardest to impress: Michael. Eleanor made an appointment with Michael at his downtown office, under the pretense of discussing Martha's estate details. As she walked into the lobby, she wore a simple, elegant black suit, the image of a grieving, wronged sister, calm and collected, ready to deliver the final, shocking verdict. Eleanor sat across from Michael in his luxurious, glass-walled office, the picture of professional sorrow. Michael, Clara's husband, was exactly as Eleanor had imagined: impeccably dressed, reserved, and clearly uncomfortable discussing family matters in his temple of business. He began by offering condolences, his tone polite but distant. "I am sorry for your loss, Eleanor," he said, folding his hands precisely on the mahogany desk. "But I must be frank. Clara is distraught, and she believes you are contesting the will out of spite. She says your mother clearly left the bulk of the estate to her because of her greater need." Eleanor met his gaze, her voice measured and calm, devoid of any emotional turmoil. She was no longer the heartbroken sister, she was the clinical psychologist presenting undeniable facts. "I assure you, Michael, I am not here about the money. I am here about the principle. I'm here because Clara has been deceiving you, deceiving our mother, and deceiving herself for years. I am concerned about the future of your marriage and your financial stability. Michael's composure wavered. Deceiving me? What nonsense are you speaking? I don't expect you to believe my word against your wife's. Eleanor said softly, sliding a pristine, organized folder across the desk. I came prepared with evidence. The folder contained everything. Martha's bank statement showing the large, regular miscellaneous withdrawals that drained the savings, juxtaposed with Eleanor's own bank records, showing the loans she had secretly given Clara over the same period. It also included old, desperate text messages from Clara detailing the real reason she needed money: a failed gambling debt, a repo man, a desperate need to keep up appearances before marrying Michael. Michael read in stunned silence. His face, initially skeptical, turned a sickly shade of white as he absorbed the truth. The dates matched perfectly. The amounts lined up with every urgent personal matter Clara had claimed to be dealing with. He saw the pattern of deceit, the deliberate creation of a tragic story about her need, all to exploit her mother and sister. Clara painted me as the well-established one to mother, Eleanor explained, her voice tightening with pain. She created a dark past story of her own to gain mother's sympathy and financial support, all while I was silently footing her bills, so mother wouldn't worry. She was literally using my kindness as a tool of deception against me to steal the estate. Michael slammed the folder shut, his face a mask of cold fury. This wasn't the sweet, fragile woman he married. This was a con artist. His deepest fear, a loss of control and public embarrassment, was now a very real possibility. 6. Clara's devastation, the shocking family story. The confrontation occurred that evening at the Linden Street house, the very house Clara was now legally trying to sell. Eleanor and Robert arrived unexpectedly, finding Clara and Michael amidst packing boxes and champagne flutes. Clara, radiant in her false triumph, quickly moved to dismiss Eleanor. "Oh, look, the grieving sister has come to say goodbye to her half of the inheritance she didn't get. It's truly sad, Eleanor." "It is sad, Clara," Eleanor agreed, her gaze fixed on Michael, who stood silent, folder in hand. "It's sad that you believed our mother's love could be bought, and that you thought your deceit would never be discovered." "Deceit? What are you talking about?" Clara laughed nervously, but her eyes flickered to the folder in Michael's hand. Michael, without a word, tossed the folder onto the dining room table. "I'm talking about this, Clara. I'm talking about the money you stole from your mother, the lies you told Eleanor, and the facade you built around me. I know about the casino debts, the failed businesses, and the way you systematically bankrupted our mother to secure this house. Tell me, how could you have been so well established when your mother was emptying her accounts for you?" Clara's composure crumbled instantly. The expensive coat, the designer handbag, it all looked cheap now, stained by her own greed. She turned on Eleanor, her face contorted with hate. You! You always hated me. You were always the golden child, the perfect one. Mother loved me more. She knew I deserved it because I didn't get the perfect life you have. "Mother loved us equally, Clara," Eleanor whispered, stepping closer. "She loved the idea of you being successful so much that you easily tricked her into thinking she needed to save you one last time. Mr. Thompson, the lawyer, was the one who was truly loyal to Mother. He knew she had been manipulated in the end. It was a total reversal of power. The victim, Eleanor, had become the executioner. The arrogant, triumphant sister Clara was cornered, betrayed by her own paper trail and her husband's furious pride. Michael's reaction was immediate and cold, a fierce demand for divorce and a forensic audit of all their joint accounts, ensuring Clara was left with nothing but the debts she had accumulated. Eleanor stood there, watching her sister's world collapse. This wasn't the sweet victory she thought it would be. It was a cold, devastating end to her relationship with her sister, but a necessary act of justice served family story. For the first time in years, Eleanor felt a terrifying sense of freedom. Clara and Michael's divorce was swift and brutal. Michael, valuing his reputation above all, settled the estate with Eleanor immediately, ensuring the house was deeded fully to her, effectively removing Clara from the picture completely. The legal justice served family story was complete, but Eleanor still felt hollow. The victory was cold, the silence between her and her only sibling deafening. A few weeks later, as Eleanor began the heartbreaking task of sorting through her mother Martha's belongings at the old house, she found something unexpected. Tucked inside an old copy of Martha's favorite Bible, pressed flat between the pages of the Book of Psalms, was a handwritten, undated letter addressed simply, "To my dearest daughter, Eleanor." Eleanor sank onto her mother's bed, the scent of lavender and aged linen surrounding her. This was the true inheritance, the heartwarming story she desperately needed. The letter was written in Martha's shaky, familiar hand. "My dearest Eleanor, my rock, my sunshine. If you are reading this, I am already gone. And if you are reading this, you probably know what Clara has done. Please forgive me. I know I have been a great disappointment to you. I knew about the withdrawals, Eleanor. Not at first, but later I knew. When Thompson brought me the bank statements, I saw the truth. But my sweet girl, I was trapped in my own fear. Clara would come to me, tearful, painting a tragic story of failure and impending homelessness. I was terrified of her sinking, of being the mother who let one of her children fall into darkness. I was afraid of the conflict. I wanted to confront her, but I didn't have your strength, my love. I used you, Eleanor. I admit it. I told Clara that you were well-established and self-reliant because I knew you would survive. You always have. You are the strong one. The truth is, I protected Clara out of weakness, and in doing so, I deeply hurt the one child who needed my trust more than anything. The house belongs to you, Eleanor. I signed the real deed over to you 3 years ago before she started manipulating me. I knew the will was weak, but Thompson promised me he would find a way to make the truth clear, even after I was gone. He knew I had to choose between truth and family peace, and I chose cowardice. Please, my strong daughter, use this house to find peace and forgiveness. Don't let Clara's dark past story define your future. Find a way to let go of the bitterness. The greatest revenge is not destruction, it is healing. It is creating a life so full of light that their shadow can never touch you. I love you, my brave girl. Always. Mom. Eleanor sat for a long time, the words washing over her. The deep, agonizing sense of betrayal didn't vanish, but it was transformed. It wasn't about her mother valuing Clara more. It was about her mother's own human weakness, the fear of a mother watching her child self-destruct. Martha's admission, her confession, was the act of unconditional love Eleanor had craved all along. The note from Mr. Thompson was not an act of daughter-in-law drama. It was a final, clandestine act of love from a mother who couldn't find the strength in life to confront the truth, but made sure the justice-served family story would prevail after her death. 8. The Path to Independent Living, an Emotional Story. The revelation was deeply emotional story. Eleanor had not merely sought revenge, she had been trying to reclaim her mother's respect. Now she had it. The bitterness toward Clara began to recede, replaced by a deep sense of sadness for her sister, trapped forever in a cycle of deceit. Eleanor kept the old Linden Street house. She and Robert renovated it, turning it into a haven, a place that represented not the conflict, but the resolution. She started a small online counseling practice specializing in family betrayal and trust issues, turning her own painful experience into a beacon of help for others. Her story became her strength. The greatest mother-in-law revenge she could enact against Clara's deceitful memory was simple. She found her own independent living and true financial freedom. She was free from the obligation to rescue Clara, free from the shadow of her sister's dark past story, and most importantly, free from the doubt that had poisoned her soul. She was finally living an inspiring story. Eleanor and Robert often visited the porch. She would look out at the quiet street, a slight, knowing smile on her face. She sometimes wondered about Clara, but the anger was gone. She had chosen peace. She had chosen healing. She had chosen herself. Dear friends, the greatest treasure we can inherit is not gold or property, but the clarity of self-worth and the strength to forgive. Eleanor's story reminds us that sometimes the hardest truths lead to the most beautiful beginnings. Welcome back, dear ones. We have followed Eleanor through a terrifying season of grief and betrayal, witnessing the cold, calculated fall of her sister Clara. But the end of this story is not about Clara's downfall, it is about Eleanor's inspiring story and her profound healing. Eleanor chose to keep the old house, not as a monument to conflict, but as a space for renewal and independent living. She and Robert transformed it slowly, filling it with the warmth of their own unconditional love and the promise of a peaceful future. The house was no longer a symbol of Martha's weakness or Clara's greed, but a testament to Eleanor's strength. Eleanor's greatest triumph lay in her professional life. She harnessed the pain of the family betrayal stories to fuel her purpose. Her small counseling practice became a beacon of hope for people dealing with the quiet, gnawing pain of being betrayed by family. She taught them that the most profound revenge is the construction of a beautiful, strong life that the shadow of their betrayer can never touch. This transformation became her greatest healing. Sister Cora's direct address, applying the Tonvin and Zhonghan technique. Dear friends, how many of us have carried a secret wound, a silent sense of being overlooked by a parent or betrayed by a sibling? Maybe you feel like your life is a constant series of disappointments, a never-ending cycle of tragic story. I want you to look in the mirror right now. You are a wonderful person. You have worked hard. You have given unconditional love. And sometimes, when we are the strongest, the most reliable person in the room, others assume we don't need anything. They think we are well established, so they direct their love, their resources, and their attention to those who make the loudest noise, those who spin the most compelling dark past story. But I want to tell you, my friend, that your worth is not defined by who gets the house, who gets the money, or who your mother protected out of fear. Your strength, your dignity, and your integrity are the greatest gifts you possess. If you have been through an emotional story of being let down, remember this. Your path to true freedom is not found in destroying the other person, but in finding your own power. The moment Eleanor chose to act not out of vengeance, but out of a need for the truth to be known, for justice to be served, she truly became free. She reclaimed her independent living and her yen peace. Final CTA, the call to connection and healing. If this story reminded you of someone you love, or if it touched that deep, secret place of pain in your heart, please don't let that feeling pass. Share your thoughts in the comments. What would your mother's last letter say to you? Let's build a community of courage and forgiveness here on Aunt Cora's porch. If you are ready to turn your own pain into an inspiring story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Sister Cora. Every evening we are here, sharing stories that stay with you long after they end. May you find your own peace and strength this week. Until next time.